you ever heard like in all these treatment centers I went to, 8 times court ordered, right? They all said you have to change people, places, and things, right? Got to change people, places, and things. And all of my counselors used to tell me, you got to fire these people in your life. And so when I finally was ready to get sober when I was 24, my sponsor in AA said to me, he said, he was a recovery therapist and a priest, right? And he said, who told you you have to fire people? And I said, all those counselors, all those other kind of people. He says, why are you acting like God? He said, you don't have to fire anybody from your life. In recovery, the only thing you have to do is set a new bottom line for yourself. That's all you have to do. You know, it's like, because like if somebody really wants to get high and they come over and say, hey, let's get high. And you go, hey, we can hang out as long as you don't get high. Are they going to hang around? No, right? They're going to go, hey, glad for you. I'll see you later, man. Right? They'll hit the door. Okay? You don't have to worry about them. They'll fire themselves. If you grow and get better and heal, the people in your life have 3 choices, right? They can look at themselves, do their own work, and support you, and do their own healing. They can split, or they have to do what? What's the other choice? The only other choice they have. Nope. Knock you down. Knock you down, right? Because if they're not going to do their own work, because I was really shocked that, you know, all the people in my life kept saying, if you would just get clean and sober, you know, we'd be happy and we'd all, you know, get along better and we'd do this, whatever. Well, I got clean and sober, and guess what? I found out they were as sick as I was, right? And, you know, like my sister told me once, you know, why don't you go get drunk and high? Because you're more of a jerk now than when you were drinking and using. And I'm like, but I'm trying. I'm just having a bad day, you know? So the thing is, just us getting sober isn't necessarily mean they're going to come along for the ride. And usually family members are the last ones to get better. And the last one in any family system to get better are the kids. Because kids do this. They sit back and wait and they go, I'm going to see what you crazy adults are doing. Okay, you all get yourself together and then I can finally deal with my stuff, right? But kids are brilliant. They're creative, they're adaptive, and kids can read a room, man. Kids can read an environment, you know? And I'm also amazed that like addicts, a lot of times we don't, like late stage addicts, I don't know about you, but like me, like when I was drinking and using at the end, I always thought I was fooling people, right? I always thought like people really couldn't tell that I was that high or that drunk or that whatever, okay? And I said, oh, I'm hiding it really well or whatever. And like, yeah, I found out when I got sober that no, I wasn't, right? Okay, but I thought I was at the time. Because who's the first person you have to lie to convince yourself it's okay to go get high again? Yourself. Right, okay? So we gotta convince ourselves and everything. Not that I was fooling everybody else, but everybody was just going, yeah, whatever. After a while, people just get tired, right, of arguing with you. Oh, whatever, you know. So, like, and if they're really sick of you, they'll tell you, like, my sister told me once, if you say I'm sorry or I promise one more time, I will kill you. My sponsor said, man, you're a late stage drunk and dope fiend, Chris. And I said, what do you mean? He said, people don't get to that point till you've shit on them quite a few times with your addiction. And I'm like, oh, okay, right? All right. So tonight we're going to talk about cravings, thinking errors, and how to start managing cravings when they come up. All right. And a craving, you can't really see on that board over there, but I wrote, a craving is just the thought of and or the desire to use. Okay, it's just the thought of it. The urge is how powerful it is, and the urge just depends on what's going on in the situation. Okay, like I'm a meth. My drug of choice was meth. Okay, and so for me, like I could be around people drinking in early recovery, having a drink, not drunks, right? I can't be around drunks, but a person having a drink didn't necessarily bother me. I could hang out at a restaurant and somebody was drinking. But man, I couldn't smell pot or be in a room with coke or meth. I mean, that for me, that triggered a craving. Like the urge was really, really powerful. It's too much of a trigger for that at that point. Okay, so if you look at this sheet here, this one right here, okay, this talks about like our rituals of using it and just how we start to like think, feel, and behave, and about life events. Okay, so at the top here it says, when we're growing up, we all experience life events, right? Life happens to everybody, and we're taught to believe certain things about the way life works. All right, and we're taught certain things about alcohol and drugs and differences with related to that, just the family, that situation that you grew up in. Okay, like my dad was a fighter pilot in the Navy, and drinking, he was a two-fisted drinker like they all are, right? So Navy pilots drink like fish. A lot of them do. But alcohol was okay. And one of the rituals or one of the traditions in our family was like when all the men or boys turned 10, like double digits, it's a crazy tradition, all the adults in our family, all the adult males would get together and get him drunk. Because they said, you gotta learn how to drink sometime. And you're double digits, 10 years old, right? So they gave you as much beer as you could drink, plus shots. I mean, I had a kid. Okay, my kid died when he was almost 3, but I remember when he was born and looking at him going, and my sponsor said, would you ever give him alcohol at 10 years old? I said, well, now that I'm sober, I wouldn't. Okay, but I mean, if I had stayed in that family system, maybe I would have, right? That was normal. So my dad was always like, you can drink as long as you're in the house and this and that and don't whatever. And so that just became the normal. That was the belief system that was okay. So I remember when I was 11, I went over to my friend Bruce's house, and he was having his 11-year-old birthday party. And so I said to Mrs. McLaughlin, I said, hey, Mrs. McLaughlin, where's the keg, right? And she's like, what? Keg? Keg? It's an 11-year-old birthday party. She says, we have to like pin the tail on the donkey and a cake. We got punch. We don't have a keg. What are you talking about, right? I go, man, this party sucks. And she said, Chris, I think you have to go home, and I don't want you playing with Bruce anymore, right? So by the time I got home, she had called my mom, and she was like, Teresa, what the hell's going on over at your house? Like, Chris is talking about having a keg at the birthday party, and And by the time I got home, my mom and dad had a powwow, and there are 3 rules in a dysfunctional family, or overwhelmed or addicted. Don't trust, don't feel, and do not talk about it. And they both sat me down and they said, your father's an officer in the Navy. We don't talk about anything that happens in this house. You are jeopardizing his career. Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And I learned real quickly, we don't talk about anything. So secrets are really important around addiction, right? Okay, so that's another one of the beliefs. Okay, so then we get to certain thoughts, feelings, choices, and behaviors as a result of whatever we're taught to believe about the way life works. Okay, and then it gets us certain results. The first time that we drink and use, I don't know anybody the first time that they drink or use ever hopes they wind up in a halfway house or on house arrest, right? I mean, the first time you had a drink, you didn't say, hope I wind up having a probation officer, okay, or going to prison, or having my choices taken away from me. All right, so nobody thinks like that at the beginning. So what happens is that as the results that you start getting, remember we talked about nobody's motivated to change until the pain of what you're doing is bigger than the positive reward that you get from it. Okay, the big book of AA says we become as what? Willing is only what? Do you know? What are they? The dying can be. Okay, most people aren't ready to make a change regarding their addiction until they feel like they're going to lose something that matters that much to them. Either their life, their health, their kids, their freedom. And remember I told you about that, like Judge Hakes down in Huntington asked me, what do I have to do to make these people get it, Chris? And I go, I don't know. I don't know what people's bottom is. What that painful thing is that's that important to them. Some people will go to prison and go, I don't care, I can function in prison. Okay? Some people go, you know what, I'll lose my kids. I'll lose a job, I knew someone that said, I'd rather go to Allen County Jail than prison. And I said, what? I'd rather go to prison than jail, okay. But he said, yeah. He goes, there's less expected of you in jail. If you're in prison, you got to have some kind of a job usually. You got to do something. I don't have to do anything. I got 3 hots and a cot in jail. Nobody expects anything from me. Okay, so I thought, whoa, okay. And for him, that wasn't a bottom. So I don't know what that is, okay? But the results. So here's what happens when the results start getting more and more negative. What happens is that your thinking up here has to change. Your thinking has to start getting more and more irrational to justify going out and participating in self-destructive behavior. Okay, to keep this whole cycle going, the thing that has to change is your thinking. And so last week we talked about our defenses, right? Like rationalizing, minimizing, blaming, all the things that we use, justifying, all those things that we use to ways to start changing our thinking to somehow justify going out and participating in behavior that eventually is hurting us more and more and more. Okay, so here's the thing though, if the results finally get painful enough, what happens is that our thinking doesn't go away, right? Once you have thinking up here, once you have any kind of, anything that you put in your bag, your coping skills, your way of getting through life, managing crisis, whatever that is, once you put anything in your bag, you can't ever take it out again. Okay, so what happens is that we get sober and life keeps happening, right? We get stressed out, we get whatever. So depending on how early you are when you started using and started relying on it for your emotional well-being, for coping, for problem solving, for recreation, for your social life, for whatever that is, the more triggers that you have, the more life events that when you first get sober are going to make you think about it again or get cravings, thoughts about using, right? And so thoughts about using, craving are absolutely normal. And I went to a lot of treatment centers where they made us fearful about talking about, thinking about it, right? I mean, we've talked about that before, right? Like in a lot of treatment centers that I went to, they would say, I went in and said, man, I am jonesing. I want to use like nobody's business. And they go, oh, we need to drop you today. I go, I don't have $15 for another urine drug screen. I'm broke. Well, you're stressing me out more, which is making me want to use more, right? Oh my God. Then they said, you need to come to group twice a week instead of once a week now. And I go, I don't have $15 for another group. I can barely get my butt here. Go to more meetings, do whatever. So they stress you out more a lot of times. All somebody needed to say to me was, you really miss drinking and using today, don't you? You really miss it. Why wouldn't you? My sponsor used to tell me, because, waking up in the morning is a trigger for you, right? Just waking up. Breathing's a trigger. He used to say breathing is a trigger for you, Chris. He says everything makes you think about it, especially if you're a really late stage addict. Remember, one of the symptoms of addiction is compulsion, right?